Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first coffee chat of 2024. Thank you for starting your day with us. My name is Rachel Zamsky, and I'm the marketing specialist here at Aqueduct Technologies. I just want to note that today's call is being recorded. We want to keep this interactive, so if at any point you'd like to ask a question, please type it in the Q&A box, and Rick will answer those live, and he'll get into that in a second. And without further ado, Rick, the floor is yours if you'd like to introduce yourself and our topic for today.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 2024. I am Rick Beaupre. I am your host today. Welcome to the first coffee chat of 2024. We're going to talk about security trends, what we saw in 2023 and what we kind of expect in 2024. You'll see we have a new platform. So thank you to our awesome marketing team, Rachel and Katie Levan. We have some new cool features we're trying out this year. So there is a live Q&A. So whether it's on top or bottom, depending on how you set up, you'll see an icon that says Q&A. Click on that. And as we move along, if you have a question, just want to make a comment, type it in that box and we'll answer the questions live from there. So I'm really looking forward to this new platform as we dive into it. So let's kick this off. Let's get going. So cyber trends of 2023, what we saw. A lot of folks, you'll see that there's not a lot of a surprise when it comes to ransomware attacks, but we did see a surge in targeted ransomware attacks. So an example would be, bad guys looking to target a large bank. They may go after a smaller bank or a smaller credit union to hone their craft. So we saw a lot of that this year. We saw much more sophisticated attacks on critical infrastructure. And that may be attacks including deployment of rootkits, keyloggers, phishing malware that's targeted towards industry controls. We saw, a few notable attempts on manufacturing facilities where they're going after the specific manufacturing network from there. So, that was eye-opening for us. And the other thing that it took off is ransomware as a service that gained popularity. There's a couple different ways. They have the one-time fees, they have subscription fees, but it's kind of a pain in our side. And, our law enforcement partners are doing their best to stay in front of this. But we find, those entities are harder to track down and take down. So we're seeing the cybersecurity vendor pool kind of react to that and trying to get more behavioral anomaly detection upfront in their tools, which is really advantageous to us. We saw a big shift on the zero trust architecture. So, that's the shift from perimeter-based security to the zero trust security. And zero trust, real quick, is just to always verify methodology. But we saw that implemented across various industries. Typically, you see that in healthcare, finance, the highly regulated industries. But we saw in the enterprise space, folks start to adopt that more as a kind of cybersecurity shift in personas. So where, they just kind of tighten the controls from there and then more towards the zero trust architecture, which was interesting to see. And then we saw organizations that couldn't adopt zero trust get into a lot of principle of least privilege. So, understanding the privileged access or understanding single sign-on with guardrails around it was one of the things that, we saw a lot of in 2023 and more so towards the later half of the year. We saw an increase in the supply chain attacks. So, where there was supply chain vulnerabilities, a lot of those were exploited, which caused an enhanced vetting of third-party vendors. You'll see this year with different things coming on, there's going to be more scrutiny around the adoption of third-party risk protections and third-party risk management programs. I think this aligns because it's a crucial part of the programs, right? So not only are we checking ourselves, but we also have to check the vendors that we do businesses. And this enhanced vetting of third-party vendors is going to continue as we get more and more regulations and more scrutiny put on us, not only from the cybersecurity industry, but from the industry as itself. We saw a lot of data privacy initiatives. We saw the need for more secure techniques as far as processing and sharing the data, whether that's data masking or hardware-based security. The data backups, really gotten to the point where we want them really resilient, immutable. But we've even gotten into data erasure. So to ensure that the data has been destroyed either physically, digitally, however they are. And that applies to different regulations throughout the globe, whatever your entity has you covered from there. But we saw that becoming more to the forefront on that. We saw a push on the data security posture management, so DSPM, and we saw that blend with security posture management. So you know whether it's a data classification project or things where security control and auditing become more effective. Those are the kind of things that we saw, and we saw an automated incident response workflow to this data, so that if the data was either outside its source or being manipulated somehow, there was a quicker response to that. We did see, a shift with some of the vendors where there's integration with threat intelligence feeds, to keep the DSPM solutions up to date on the latest trends in traffic tactics, which was really nice to see. And of course, this is not news to everybody, but the security skills gap. You know, we found, excuse me, in 2023, the ongoing shortage of cybersecurity professionals caused a lot of customers to reach out for us for help to cover those. We did some research and we found roughly 4 million cybersecurity professionals are needed worldwide. It's as troublesome here in the US. We still see, half of that being needed. And we see that the core problem, adding to this security gap remains unchanged in the sense of technologies evolving. We're having more and more things added to the landscape, and keeping the cybersecurity professionals up to date or getting them the demand gen is really greater than ever. We've even gotten into where our talent delivery team has multiple focuses on that, from the executive level all the way down to the entry level, just to try to help the demand for our customers. And we saw that the evolving threat landscape from the attacks, as they get more difficult to detect, that we're using automation, right, to kind of cover those skills gaps as much as we can. But it should be noted that we're never going to replace humans with the automation. You're still going to need that set of eyes, and you're going to still need that human feeling in cybersecurity to double check everything from there. And we saw the push from stricter cybersecurity laws and regulations. Not only do we have all of this trouble with bad actors and all of this stuff, but now we have these stricter cybersecurity laws and regulations. We find, compliance is probably the key driver for cybersecurity challenges in 23. A lot of folks don't realize, but in all 50 states, including DC and the 3 federal territories, there are breach notification laws in place. Some are stronger than others, but it's always a good idea to look at those and to be up to date on those. We all know that the SEC has adopted their ruling from December 18th that says, public companies, must report within 4 business days on an incident. And we're finding, that to be true, on their 8Ks. Smaller reporting firms have until June of 2024, to comply. So that gives us, a little bit more room from that way. Couple things to keep in mind. California CCPA and New York Shield Act are probably the strongest state ones that we've seen to date. And we've seen kind of a push towards SOX compliance and COSO for data privacy and PCI DSS kind of start rising up as things that we should take notice of. So let me take a pause here and see if there's any questions in there. I don't see any at the moment. All right, so let's jump into what we see in 2024 and what we expect in 2024. So we do see a increase in advanced threat protection. The use of AI and ML for real-time threat analysis is really picking up steam. The idea of having near real-time anomaly detection. And one of the things that you'll see kind of come up stronger is predictive analysis. So we really want that to kind of be the model for us. So predictive analysis is really going to be that idea of taking user behavior, malware detection, and threat attributions and kind of mold them all in together. That is really going to give us a cutting edge here. And we see that that's coupled with AI, machine learning, natural language processing to improve threat prioritization. So the idea is that when a threat is noticed, that it's going to rise and then be classified based on your model, what we think is going to be advantageous to us. The great thing about it is that we've seen it does reduce a lot of false positives, but it encourages this real-time response for us and it enhances our capability. I think you're going to see things with SOC as a service really starting to mature and be a lot more advantageous to us because with the threat landscape, trying to have your own SOC is really just so hard on the organization because of the people that you need and everything that you need on a day in and day out basis just to operate those. A lot of times we're seeing that money can be shifted elsewhere into organizations, so it's not so much of a bleed on the organization. For 2024, where there is going to be more focus on cloud security enhancements. So we see, cloud native is good, but we're seeing customers overlay these multi-cloud security solutions on top of it, just so they can have the same policies and procedures and the same unified security. It's not to say that the cloud natives and the AWS, Azure, Google security tools are going away. We're just seeing a lot more folks taking all of that tools and feeding it into something else to give a lot more visibility on there. We're seeing the implementation of zero trust models in the cloud services. So folks that normally would use all just the cloud native services are now connecting all of those services together, and they're doing it in a zero trust model and kind of sectionalizing zones off. So, that by the time you get to a database, you're really far into the cloud, in really protecting it along the way with various segmentation ideas, whether it's configurational segmentation or, a firewall in place along the way from there. We're seeing cloud-specific vulnerability assessments now, where you're kind of focused on misconfigurations, weak access management through integrations, and a lot more scrutiny on APIs. The amount of vulnerable APIs out there is mind-boggling, but we're seeing a lot more focus on it because as we move to this API model, there's a lot of things that need to be considered from there. And then rounding out applied observability, we know that's a Gartner term, but we're seeing a wide spectrum of operational use cases for this. So, real quickly, applied observability is the practice of monitoring, analyzing, and gaining insight into the behavior and performance of your systems, right? So whether that's hardware, application, infrastructure, whatever, we're seeing organizations like App Dynamics, Thousand Eyes, Dynatrace, Manage Engine, Datadog really focus in on those areas to give us a wider, more understandable view of our organization. We're seeing a push into privacy enhancement technologies. So you'll hear this term PETS, PETS. And essentially what that does is, it's really, I say it takes many shapes and forms, but it's more of a data security technique. So whether it's, you know, cryptographic algorithms or masking sensitive fields or even just decentralizing, the data itself. You're going to see a lot more push onto that. We're seeing folks start with data classification projects on the lower end and then moving in data into different zones. So, this increased use of anonymization and data minimization techniques are really going to start showing more grit in 2024. Kind of look at hardware software solutions like Thales Security, where they kind of homogenize this. So where you can kind of take and anonymize that data either um, with cryptology or some kind of data masking at near real speeds, right? So that's really going to be the key to that, because we all know as security practitioners, the more we add to things, the slower the data, the more impact on the user. And that's the last thing that we want to do. We're also, you're going to see things with compliance for privacy regulations, things that I read, if you look at Article 5(1)(c) of the GDPR, they're really pushing that personal data should be limited to what is necessary in your organization. But it also, if you want the data to be erased, that they can do it in near real time. So you'll see this data minimization thing kind of picking up speed from there. But that's really what it equates to. And I would expect the US to kind of get in a similar cadence with that. This has been probably the most fascinating to me, and that's really the quantum resistant cryptology. Um, NIST has worked really hard to get in front of this, develop algorithms that can resist the quantum attacks. Quantum computing is picking up steam pretty regularly. A lot of the major cloud providers are going down that road to get that done. We're seeing a lot of data centers be able to push that as well. To get that quantum computing. But you'll see that there's 4 algorithms that have been released to the general public from this. I won't go all to names, but there's a general encryption thing, and then there's a couple of ones for more application specific on there. And what's really great about them is based on your specific need, you can use those, and they're all going to become industry standards very quick. Just to kind of stay in front of this. And of course, AI, right? So we're seeing cybersecurity AI into SOAR platforms. So SOAR platforms with AI enabled um, take, as I said earlier, the machine learning, the NLP, and kind of group it all together. What that does is it reduces the mean time to detection. And that's really what we want. And then on top of that, the mean time to respond, right? So MTTD and MTTR, our bread and butter, right? I think, in my opinion, this is one of the reasons that Cisco bought Splunk, is to really get in front of that thing. And you kind of couple that with their products that they have, and they're really starting to allow us to get in front of the breaches. So you'll see that pre-breach security tools, while they gained a lot of momentum in 23 and probably 24. We also have to remember a post-breach approach is required as well. So we want a tool that really, equips both, right? So we want something that is a pre-breach tool, but something that's also a post-breach tool. That way, we can kind of look at it and understand what's happening in the environment. But again, we need tool sets to identify and investigate and respond to those attacks. We don't want anything to stay undetected and below the radar. We want to make sure that we're flushing those out. With AI, we're going to see the ability to detect infections that may already be on your network from there. Things that may be dormant or somebody doing recon or something like that. Um, you know, uh, that's really going to help us. So it's going to accelerate that transformation. I see as folks kind of being able to implement this tools without too much interference with their organizations, right? So we kind of want to always make sure that we're looking at the technology process, our compliance requirements, and kind of putting them together to make sure we're staying in front of that. With the pandemic and the remote work, became in the forefront, we're still seeing the remote workforce staying, but we have to do it safely. We're seeing still that, you know, securing the remote workforce is critical. There's been a big push in software-defined perimeters, so SDPs, is really kind of think of it as an always on VPN. But again, it's these things to a gateway, and then you're controlling from the gateway. We saw a lot of folks working from home, and their networks may not have been as secure as we hoped. From there, but SDP kind of helps us maintain that good user experience, maintain the security for us. And if we're going down a least privilege or a zero trust route, that software-defined perimeter can really help us as security practitioners to understand what's on our network and kind of where they're going from here. We really want to flush out any hidden internet connections or anything that may be bleeding our data from there. So with these kind of tools, we can stay in front of this. And then lastly, the employee training. We've seen a fair amount of specialized programs that we're doing, but also in the security awareness is whether you have, a Adobe for Mimecast or the Arctic Wolf version, these are all been upped to include remote workforce security to make sure that our users are being as secure as possible. They're understanding when they may say a phishing attack. They understand the importance of, not doing non-business on enterprise-owned equipment from there. So, overall, we do see folks, taking heed to those educational things, so it's been, pretty eye-opening for us. Cybersecurity automation. So, we're seeing that this concept of using these systems where I talked about using AI and machine learning, what we really want to do is make sure that we're getting threat protection as fast as we can. So we're seeing things like from a security operation incident response level that there's tiered remediation, there's systematic escalations, and that's all based on one, what the AI may tell us, but also our human interactions with those where we can classify those faster and be able to respond to them. But we're also seeing that with these AI tools that we can get, audit friendly automated evidence collection, right? So I talked earlier about post and pre and post breach. With this post breach stuff, some of this AI security operations can actually corral that forensic information that we need from there. And then with the cybersecurity automation, right, this reduction to manual task and human error allows us smarter resource allocation. So we can, put people in the right spots. And, we got one or two people that are overseeing, these tools, which makes it, us to be able to move people around as needed. And then I talked earlier about the cyber supply chain attacks. Supply chain attack prevention is going to be pretty prevalent on 24. You can see that there's going to be risk management strategies applied to this. You're going to have where you can identify cyber risk during an onboard phase from a vendor. You'll be able to scale the vendor according to risk. So these third-party platforms for risk management are really picking up steam. But from us as practitioners, we're responsible for everything that touches our network. So that may include some third party. So it's important for us to not only from a security perspective understand what they are, but from a regulatory and risk perspective, that we make sure that they're compliant, that we make sure that they're doing the best that they can do, and that we can report on the supply chain effectiveness, right? So we want to make sure we have that insurance from there. Then, of course, government regulations, they're going to come stronger and stricter, both in the US and globally in 24. I see lawmakers trying to take a lot of the 50 states and kind of supersede those. So you have California and New York that are pretty strong now. I see lawmakers trying to get stricter regulations to that, which, were meet or exceed GDPR. We're seeing that now with the SEC. I think you'll see some kind of form of that in there. And I would prepare for cybersecurity and AI regulations in 24. There's a big push. I had a coffee chat earlier last year on the ethics in AI. You're going to see a lot more of that. You're going to see a lot more guardrails around that because not only are we using AI for good, there are folks that are also trying to use it for bad. And there's a bunch of different tools that are out there now to try and manipulate the AI as much as they can for bad. So, stay tuned for that. We are seeing in this big push that you really got to make sure that compliance is the key for your business. So whether that's your internal compliance or you're trying to adhere to our industry specific compliance, it's very important that you have some kind of a plan for that. With this impact of cybersecurity regulations coming down over the last year or so, we have been developing a platform that we refer to as GRACE, which is really the governance risk and compliance engine that's underneath. And really what that does for our customers is take that compliance requirements and feed them in and see where you stand from there. But it also gives us the ability to help you as far as understanding, um, you know, compliance requirements, technology requirements, and really understanding the risk landscape. We built this platform to kind of take the guesswork out of building cybersecurity programs. We saw a lot of folks that with this push that didn't have any plans, didn't map technologies to controls, which is very important. You may say, okay, I need, take one example of IDAM, and I'm going to have a single sign-on solution. From there, that's going to check off that box. But what's important is that may check off more than one box and understand that program, is really advantageous. We're seeing, there's big pushes as far as SOC and NIST and PCI and ISO 27000 and all these other frameworks rising up because folks feel much more comfortable adhering to those standards than just not having anything, right? So this is really designed to, um, get you from start to finish, right? So governments, risk, strategy, and this continuous monitoring, you'll see that that's going to be a big push in 24, especially with the dynamic landscape, from there. And if you have your own custom framework that you need, we can surely do that as well. Let's see, I do have a question here. Balance the desire of security teams. Let's see, how are you seeing companies balance the desire of security teams to lock everything down and the balance of the business to get to their work efforts accomplished? That's a great question. So I talked earlier about some folks taking the zero trust model, and we're finding exactly that is that balance. If you start going too fast in a zero trust architecture, you're going to make a bad user experience. So what we've seen is folks do least privilege, so kind of a role-based access from there, starting off with privileged access management and then working into a single sign-on solution to where you can kind of do role-based access to make them aware of the applications that they have access to. So we're kind of seeing that shift that way. Because again, as much as we want to lock everything down in IT, it's all about the user experience. And if the user can have a good experience, the business does well. And then they, in turn want us to do more. So us as security practitioners do have a hard job in the sense of, we got to lock down our networks, but we also have to do it in a way that doesn't impede the, business. So I hope that answered your question from there. Let's see, what else we got? I think that did it. So, as we kind of wrap up here, ask us about this platform. Again, this was built on customer demand, asking us to help them, correlate for the compliance requirements to the technology requirements and mapping those technology to controls. As we wrap up, I want to show you this thing here that our marketing department has done such a great job of, kind of encapsulating everything that I've talked about here into this data sheet. So take a look at it, look at the keys to success, really prioritizing your security framework. I think you'll find that we have a lot of technology, but we can't map it to anything. And once we can start mapping it to stuff, it's going to give us a lot more visibility to the business. One of the things that we've always tried to do is make sure that it's not a cost center and that we're really kind of helping the business as much as we can. And tools like this help, magnify that for you as practitioners to give back to the business to say, hey, here, I got this control, this technology maps to these controls, and here's what, I can do with it. From there. And then you'll see in here, we do have different assessments that we can help you guys out with, from whether it's threat, network, penetration test. The goal at the end of the day is to make sure you're as protected as possible, as ready for the next event, that may come our way. So let's kind of wrap up with some questions from here. If you have anything, type it in the Q&A from here. I'm looking through my screen to see what I have. All right. So we wrap up next steps here. On February 21st, I'm going to take a deeper dive into our GRC program. I'm hoping to be joined by our field CISO to talk about what we've done as an organization to map our technology to controls and get our adaptations that we need as an organization to ensure. And, some things were easier than others and some things were tougher than others. And we kind of want to share that experience with you guys to, help you along the way and kind of avoid some of the things that we had to go through. We do have these security workshops that myself and the field CISO do from there. Ask any of your account reps, if you want to join one of those. They're free. We help you go through, what technology you have, kind of help you map the controls and just help with the overall security program. Um, the coffee chat series is for you. So look down here, what topics matter to you. They're virtual, they're every Wednesday, third Wednesday of the month. So, if you want to see a particular topic, you see things that are happening out there that you want us to address, these are all for you. We try to keep them as informative possible and not as salesy as, some that I've seen from there. So Rachel, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. That was really insightful. I'll be sending along a follow-up email with a link to today's recording, additional resources, as well as Rick's contact info if you have a specific topic that you want us to cover in 2024. If you think of any questions after the call, don't hesitate to send them over, and I'll share those with Rick to get them answered for you. And thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning on our first coffee chat of 2024. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.